What up, everybody? It's your man, DJ Caveman, DJ
DJ
Iron
Monkey.
Monkey. We got
Yep.
another Saturday conversation in the building. This week, we're doing a roundtable discussion, part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go check out episode 81, not episode 82. So an amendment from the last episode where I said it was 82. It's actually 81, the Tim Brown episode.
All right.
So go check that out. Also, the episode 84 is still available for you, as well as all of our episodes. But
Yeah.
we're gonna dig into this shit right now, man. We got a
85.
we got a fine roundtable for episode 85. What we're gonna do today, just some quick ground rules. We're gonna be talking about some things. All that I ask is that you keep your comments brief, under 2 minutes or under 3 minutes. Since we have a small group today, we can go a little longer, so that we can make sure we get in all the things that people want to say, and not everybody has an opportunity to speak when they want to. So you already know me. I'm DJ Caveman, aka your DJ's favorite DJ, podcast host extraordinaire. And myself and DJ Iron Monkey decided to do these roundtables so that we keep the discussion going with regards to what's happening in America with regards to race and things like that. And the police, and as it is an election year, not that that's the main drive for it, but these conversations need to be had, and then not enough of us are having these conversations in groups where we can discuss these solutions. I want it to be a lot more about the solutions than it is about just because there's enough people out there fucking talking about the problems, and we all know what the problems are already. So now these discussions are about how do we get to solutions for some of these problems. And so this week we're going to get into police reform. But
yes, sir.
I'll pass the mic to DJ Iron Monkey so we can do his own special introduction.
Yeah. I love having these conversations because even online, I partake in a lot of forums or with people that are talking about certain things, and I try to add perspective to things, such as with police reform. People like to say, it's not right, certain things, and I'm like, yeah, it is true. Certain things aren't right, but you have to look at the big picture. A part of this conversation that we're having is trying to put things in the perspective and look at the big picture, because one thing that I started to realize is that not a lot of people have interactions with police, and even when they do, they take in a lot of what is going on around them, and then they apply it to that situation. And a lot of times it is not, a lot of those things aren't applicable. It's not transferable. Another thing that I'm noticing too is that on the other side, I try to look at the other side and I try to see their points rather than just totally dismissing them, because it's hard to dismiss somebody totally and then expect them to listen to you and hear you out. So I try to at least offer them something that I want in return. So that being said, I'll pass it off to my main man, Jim.
Hey, what's going on? James Hemingway, local real estate agent and dog trainer. And
right.
I'm glad you guys invited me to be on here. I watched the last roundtable, and yeah, absolutely. This is something I think that you hit the nail on the head, Darryl, when you said you want to focus on solutions, because everybody's got the problem. I think anybody who hasn't figured out that there's a real, deadly serious and systemic problem at this point, they're not reading from the same playbook. So really, right now it's on us, people who can see the truth for what it is, people who feel convicted to do something about it, to start figuring out solutions. What will we do? How will we do it? How long will it take? That kind of thing. But there's power in meetings like this. But this is the first step, right? The second step, everybody on here, I see 4 business owners. I see people who have to go out and work and make their money and live their life. Oh, and what's that other thing? Fun, right? We want to have time to enjoy the life we're having.
And that's not the effort I was fitting for, but okay.
Yeah. Right. So, but by being here, this is the first step of accepting responsibility for our part in this, because there are things outside of our control, like a police officer, for an example. A public policy is not immediately within our control, even if we go and show up and vote in November. Taking responsibility means we're looking for ways to take control. We're looking for ways to put into practice our values. And it starts just like this, with conversation, making connections. And then I think really, what I'd like to see come out of this meeting is something like a commitment from among ourselves, people who are watching, to put some time aside and do something towards those goals. So there's that. Because and I wrote this down. I wrote down a whole little spiel. I'll save you that because I only got 2 minutes. But you will either be governed or you will govern yourself. One or the other. So I don't think our generation, we're all about the same age, and I don't think our generation has had a language of politics beyond electoral politics. We haven't had a language of going to organizing ourselves into groups, going to committee meetings, going to hearings, going to all the little places where all these places, different places where all these decisions get made. We're not in the habit of engaging with that part of the world. Very few of us are. The ones that are, they're the ones we see, you know them, they're involved, they're active and so forth. But it's going to take the mass of people, or at least a critical mass of people, getting politically active and not saying who their favorite candidate is around election time. That's not going to cut it. It's going to be a constant overwatch because the cops are out there every day. The policies are enforced every single day. The wheels of this thing turn and turn and turn. They never stop turning. Our job's got to be to find creative ways to get in the mix, get in the gears of that machine, and see what we can do. See what we can do to produce our vision in the world. So I'm really looking forward to it. There's power in this right here. So let's get talking. I'm excited about it. Adena.
All right.
No, I'm right here. My name's Adena. Just a community member, 13 years. I worked in social services. Within my life, I've always been involved in community activism, whether it be for kids, for youth, for the community against violence, for Black people in general, for the LGBTQ community of color. And I agree. I think it's more than just having these conversations. I think it is a dedication and a commitment to doing something after this. I think it is a good platform, and I appreciate the fact that you guys even give us the opportunity to have this conversation, because it's not being had. It's being had amongst the educated among us, as I call them, the same people being recycled that have the same opinions and allegiances, the same people that have the same dedicated things they have to do. So they can't really step outside of that because they have to stick within a certain script. And so having those same people involved constantly making the same decisions leaves us stagnant. And so I think conversations like this, by just regular people who have to live with this bullshit, being able to make those conversations had and having commitment afterward is really important.
Nice. Yeah, I like those points that both of y'all made. Daryl, caveman, coached by your government.
It's all good. My government's in the corner over here. I don't know how to change it to DJ caveman. So
everybody, they need mobile. So.
So yeah, man. Welcome everybody, and just as a transparent disclaimer. I invited about 15 people to the event today, some of which were not able to attend based on, scheduling conflicts. Especially, I invited a few political folks to come on today, and they had to unfortunately decline. But also, some people just never hit me back, and so that happens too. And then others were subjected to their own their bosses.
Yeah,
and
contractual obligations.
And contractual obligations. As always, I also invite a few of the police officer friends that I have, and this time around, neither of them got back to me. Everybody's gonna reach their level of comfort at a different time. I don't want to think that these people are bad people because they don't want to sit and talk. But you have to get there when you get there, and hopefully at some point they get there. I understand, especially with the police officers. They have an obligation to their shield, as well as an obligation to their community, and making the world rough for them right now might not be the best decision for them.
Yeah.
So because we all know how that can happen. So let's get into it, man. We're talking about police reform. I want to start with the simple question, right? What does police reform look like You know, you have a lot of like defund the police type activists out there right now, and we're gonna get to that later. But what does the police reform look like? What does it look like? What does a reformed police department look like? And in my personal opinion,
Mhm.
you know, it looks like a situation where like the police are better trained to handle social situations. I feel like right now, like we train our police department to be combative. You know, we fight crime, we bang people over the head, we throw people in handcuffs. There's not a lot of talking from what I know about the police training process. It seems very, and maybe James, you can speak to this, but it seems very militant in a way where they're just like, go in there, bang some heads, handcuff who you need to handcuff, slam them in the back of a car, keep it moving, as opposed to maybe having a little bit more conversation about what is actually happening here. I'd also go on the limb to say that like actual police reform is, you know, when the police are actually showing up to police the actual crimes as opposed to trying to find the crime. You know, you get pulled over right now and your car might smell like the weed you smoked 4 days ago, but now you're a drug smuggling suspect versus like you only got pulled over for speeding. So why are we talking about the drugs that are not in my car right now? But that's what it kind of looks like for me. So
Well, one thing I want to say too is first things first, you have to recognize the root of the issue, because if you try to take out a bad tree and just cut off the limbs, it's just gonna keep growing and it's gonna grow deeper roots. So you have to look at where it's all rooted, where really policing are basically just overseers that just switch their uniforms. That's all it is, uh, in a lot of cases, because policing was in a lot of those times were capturing slaves, runaways, and making sure that they weren't, being too flip or feeling too free. Um, but a lot of them just changed their uniforms where they became police. So understanding that that is deeply rooted in the system is one thing, because even though that, like you were saying about policemen getting trained, you could get an A in your class, top, but then when you go and your commanding officer is telling you to do shit that is sideways, you're like, no, my training told me not to do that. They're the one that's giving you the report. So
Exactly.
you could get an A in class, but in real life, he could give you an F for not following his instructions. So it's those kind of things that you have to realize and recognize up front when you're actually starting to deal with reform. So I don't know if anybody else like Adena or James will have anything to say along those lines about recognizing where to start with the reform.
I think I think a little bit of the problem is also when you talk about trying to make cops into social workers. If they wanted to be social workers, they'd be social workers. People that become cops didn't become cops because they thought they wanted to help people. Let's just be honest. If you did, you'd be a social worker, you'd be a substance abuse counselor. You got into this job to be in a position of power over people. Right, wrong, or different. Not saying that's wrong. A principal's in a power position over people as well. Those positions are sometimes needed. But the type of personality that makes you want to become a police officer is not the same personality that makes you want to be a social worker. They're two inherently different personality types. So in order to reform and make a person that got into a field for one thing have to change their mindset and personality type to become something totally opposite, it's impossible. It's impossible. I wanted to become a cop to be a superhero. Sitting with someone for 10 hours while they're cycling through a manic episode is not superhero work in the eyes of most people. So they're not going to want to do that.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think that, to both of your points, Dawood, you're talking about, the history of police forces. 100% right. Police forces transform themselves from being like basically just enforcers of in the South especially, but all over the country, as enforcers of the social code against Black people, African Americans in this country. And so their role was and is as the violent arm of the state, to your point, Adena. That is their purpose. Now, I can tell you sitting here in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, that the police force doesn't see, it's benign, right? They're out there on the street. They're not bothering people on the street. They're not doing anything out here, as far as I know, that's, what we see on the news or what other people, other than me, experience every day in their neighborhoods.
Mhm.
You got to go to a poor section of town.
Yeah.
You got to go to a section of town where people are segregated maybe by color. Obviously, I already said poor, so like by economics, because really what it is, they are the violent arm of the state. The only reason we allow the state to have a monopoly on violence is because we want to protect the entire society. So the state says, look, we're going to have these rules, and if someone breaks these rules with violence, we need to be able to respond with violence. Therefore, we need the right as the state to act violently towards people. And we say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, if somebody's, downtown with a handgun picking people off, we want an armed response to that. I don't think it's a bridge too far to me to say you don't.
Yeah.
But the essential, the work or that right of the state to be violent is enforced by police officers. That's the only job. I've long thought for years that the mission is what the problem is. To your point, Adena, they're not social workers. And quite frankly, as a society, we should be ashamed that we react to problems that arise out of inequality, economic or otherwise, problems that arise out of, mental health issues, issues with substance abuse, issues with code enforcement, right? I'm thinking of Eric Garner, a tax violation for selling loose cigarettes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's something that a police officer needs to go. I think the mission needs to change.
See,
100% agree.
And see, to a lot of the points here is like I wanted to state is that some of these trainings are very, very violent, and they're being trained to enforce force.
Yeah.
To Dina's point, I saw a video about some of the training videos that they have that they give officers, or some of the training that goes on in Minneapolis. And the guy's like, look, if you're not prepared to kill a crackhead or defend, what's going on, this is not a line of work for you. Go into something else.
Yeah.
So that mentality is bred in their training. Like,
Exactly.
look, if you're not able to shoot somebody and kill somebody, if needed, this is not a job for you.
So should it be a situation then where the police are first responders, right? They pull up on a strung out crackhead on the street. He's being a little loud. Should they then call somebody else?
They would in my world, in the vision I have for this, and it's an amalgam of different different things I've seen over the years and read about over the years from different countries, right? Portugal has like a great social services first responder team. There's people who have mental health or drug issues, and they have uniformed civil servants go out and deal with it. I would imagine that if you're a police officer and you see someone who's potentially dangerous in that situation, you have these people that have the first call, your job would be to make a perimeter. Hey, sir or ma'am, don't go down that street. There's a gentleman having a problem. We're going to get the first responders in there, and you can go down the street here in a minute. Thank you for your cooperation. That's for an instance, that's what I think it is. I don't think the police should be engaging with that person. I don't think that violence should be used by the state or anyone else unless it's in the immediate defense of someone's physical person.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, in the case of like Eric Garner, like no matter what, he was selling Lucy's, like that.
Give him a ticket.
The crime and the force that was pushed upon him is disproportionate. Like it doesn't, like, even with homeboy, and I'm mad I'm drawing a blank, but the fact that it was a fake $20 bill, like it does a fake $20 bill, and they come to find out it wasn't even fake. But the fact is that look at the fact at the level of force that they apply to minorities.
Absolutely.
People that are in a certain financial bracket, because if it's out there. Guy shot up when Batman first came out. Shot up the whole movie theater.
Who did? Yep.
right? And he came out alive. Dylan Roof, he came out alive. So these are things that people are like, look, how is my fake $20 bill really hurting the society right now where I could get killed for this?
Yeah.
Me selling loose cigarettes, how does this result in my death? But if I was out there killing people as a non-minority, I'm walking away. You know?
Let's
You
get
handcuff me.
Adena in real quick. Go ahead,
My
Adena.
question is, why is everyone being given a gun just to do a job to help the community? Not every issue requires a gun. Now, if that call had been taken saying we have suspect of someone having fake money, and the police or whatever team they're labeled comes out to like see what's going on, they get into an argument. There's no murder. There's no guns because they both are equal on the playing field. The cop doesn't feel like he automatically has an override power over somebody. How does that even make sense that someone gets called and it ends at that way? Okay, you suspect it's fake 20. Give him a ticket.
Yeah.
Why isn't
See,
that
a citation?
A citation.
George Floyd, and I'm mad that I forgot his name and I drew a blank.
But it comes down to the fact that when you get these people that did not get into this job to help, they got into this job to be in power and control to enforce things and to keep people in a structure. There's never going to be a way to take that. You can't take that away. It's a personality type. It's bred in.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain personality type to get into certain jobs, and there's a certain personality type to do that job.
So does the reform happen not necessarily in the training, then in the infrastructure? So like a call comes into 911, and instead of dispatching the police department, they dispatch paramedics, depending on the situation.
Or
you know what I
social
mean? Or a social worker.
How many times have I seen working in social services, a client having an episode, the cops come, there's 3 cop cars, there's 4 or 5 cops, for a person to have an episode, they end up tased, they end up tackled to the ground, this does not help the person, they end up locked up, that does not help the person, and what else does it do? It puts them in the system. Now we're paying for this person's medication. We're paying for this person to be in prison.
Yep.
Does not help them. Instead of putting them in a hospital, getting them the help they need, or having someone come and talk to them.
Finding them a job.
Somebody to talk them out of it.
See, look at the response to a fire. When there's a fire, cops would show up there first. I don't understand how they get there first before the fire. I don't understand that.
Because they're on the street.
They're on the street. They're generating closer.
They're already on the street.
But you see, but understand, they have the cops, then they have the paramedics, and then the fire team. The fire team will probably get there before the paramedics, either way. But there's 3 teams that respond to it. Right. So in a case of somebody having an episode, they should have at least 2 teams. Yes, have the social team show up first, and then as a second wave, have the police show up just in case. Have them not be in the forefront, have them be as backup.
Right.
Not as first responders, like, all right, it's starting to get a little bit out of hand. It's getting a little bit too dicey for you and your limit because a weapon is now involved. This is where now I must step up. See, certain things like that.
Which is how it is at most fire scenes. You know, your fire department is handling the fire, the police are keeping a perimeter and making sure that nobody fucks up with the fire department or the paramedics, and
no one gets hurt.
And no one gets hurt that way. And that could be, like I said, it's an infrastructure thing where, you know, the process needs to change from the beginning. Right now the process is 911 send the police. It should be 911 send the appropriate response team, but that also is going to require that a lot of these 911 situations be upgraded too, because 911 in Rhode Island is not the same as 911 in Boston or California, where they might have more funding. Our 911 in Rhode Island is trash. Yeah, like they don't have the funding, they don't have the equipment.
They had money for it. I don't know what happened with that money.
It's been allocated.
I think that I'm sorry guys, but right on this point about funding, about changing the infrastructure. This starts with setting the policy at the level of government, right? We say it's not going to be our policy to put people in jail when they're having an episode. It's not going to be our policy to put people in jail for civil infractions. It's not going to be our policy to do that. We are going to have to respond to these things. We live in a stable society, right? So, right, you're going to want someone who's doing tax enforcement. You're going to want someone who's providing mental health services, family services, what have you. Right now, those departments are vastly underfunded. We don't spend the money there. Our money gets spent on local money gets spent on schools, police departments. National money gets spent on the empire, and then funding out for police departments and schools and so forth.
And in actuality,
It's gonna take a lot of money to beef up the social services response systems.
It's just
gonna take
moving the money around because a lot of that funding is going towards military grade
Exactly.
Keeping
equipment.
people in prison, keeping people
While
in
kids
prison,
drink
paying
water with the
for
bubble.
all the materials. Yeah, man.
hey,
Yeah.
listen, I just want to step in real quick because James kind of started my pivot for me. It's all good. This is what happens in a conversation. But I want to pose the question. You know, we talk about what it looks like, but now how do we get there, right? Like, what does it look like for us to get there? What needs to happen? We need to start with the policy, which means that we need to have the people who can put that policy in place run for these offices.
Well,
It also means that, you know, we have to have our community be okay with also becoming police officers and social workers and like not being looked down upon for doing those jobs, because then they never want to do them because they don't want to be ridiculed by their peer group. But also, to James's point, a lot of that fund is not going to education, my guy, because right now we're having a different discussion about how schools are not prepared to open because they can't afford to. But that's a whole other podcast.
But it does relate. But it does relate, though. You're absolutely right, because a lot of these issues a lot of what the police aren't real crimes. A crime is you steal something from me. A crime is you assault me physically. That's a crime. Speeding down the road, is that a crime? Do I need a state trooper on 195? Or could we just put a camera there that could send me a ticket automatically through the mail? Do I need to have a guy coming around sniffing at my car, asking me what's in the glove compartment? What's in the trunk? What's in your pockets?
Well,
were you going 75 or weren't you? It's not something that demands. It's not a crime.
See, now,
in my opinion,
to your point, yeah, a lot of these things just need citations. Just give them a ticket, go about your business. Like there shouldn't be any hand-to-hand with an Eric Garner. There shouldn't be a hand-to-hand with a George Floyd. It's just give them a citation and then go about it. Show up to court and we'll talk about it in people's court. That's it. But to Daryl's point, though, it's not always about what we can do. It has to be a willingness on the police's part. Because one thing that's happening in New York is that since they took a little bit of funding away, all of a sudden policemen are getting lazy on the job. Yeah. And they're not even being shy about it. They're not even being shy about it.
But that's the problem when
George is doing it too.
Like I've heard tell in New Bedford so I've heard anecdotes from people in New Bedford.
People are calling out. People are calling out.
But
to 911 responses, they're taking their time responding to it. Huh?
If that was your community, would you do that to your own community?
No.
That's why, again, I go back to it. There needs to be a residency requirement for all city and state jobs.
That's what I brought up in the last podcast.
You care more, then they bring in it doesn't matter if we break it down to 10, 20, 15, 100 cops. If they're all from outside of the city and they don't give a fuck about the kid that's next door, they don't care. They don't have to answer that person's parent. Mm-hmm. They don't have to tackle your son for playing loud music and then see you and stop and shout. It's the same thing with teaching. If you are not from that community, you have more of a hands-off approach, because at the end of the day, there's no real accountability, because you're not going to really have to see these people outside of your work interaction. You're not going to see them in plain clothes and on a daily basis at the basketball court, the gym.
You don't know their kids.
That was a part that I brought up on the last podcast, but then I actually started thinking a little bit more about it. But the thing is like, anytime you go home, you're never off the clock. So that mental drain is always going to be there.
Choose that, but that's the choice of your job. People choose those jobs. It's a job.
That is true. But that is true. You know, but like
doctors, social workers.
No. But mind you,
good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, you're a social worker. You're gonna have to tell somebody that the state's taking their kids in the morning. You're gonna have to see that same person.
Watch this.
Nobody's gonna fly a flag for you.
If my girlfriend was a masseuse, massaging all day, right? Now she comes home. She wants to take a time off. I'm like, yo, babes, my back is hurting. Yo, babes, my legs hurt. Yo, I need a massage. Yo, the fuck? Yo, you a masseuse. This is what you do. She needs some time to actually
say no. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
no.
That's what they have vacations for, man. Because you call your doctor 24 hours a day, bro. And if your family member is a doctor or a lawyer or somebody that you can call on for favors, how many people call their lawyer friend all the time for legal advice? I call my cousin at least once a month. Hey, cuz, what you think of this legal shit? I call James about real estate shit. You know what I'm saying? I call Adena about cooking shit. There's never once you're in a certain profession, There is no such thing as time off unless you take it yourself.
But as a policeman, there's a certain level, though. It's a difference between being a cook and a real estate agent versus being a cop.
But when you're
And
a
then
cop,
somebody's
right now,
like, yo,
Question is
I just got home from a 12-hour shift, and now all of a sudden you got something going on, and y'all arguing with your woman, and you're like, yo, you need to come and talk to my girl because she's wilding. Like, yo,
Well,
dude, I just got home.
you
Yo,
need to be
call
able
the
to
station, call the station, and let them. Yo, I'm off the clock, man. Yo, you gotta
Correct.
respect it.
Correct, but that should still happen with residency requirements. It doesn't matter if you live outside, because if you work in Providence and you live in Cumberland, guess what's gonna happen when you go home? Somebody in your family is gonna have a fight, and they're gonna call you first. They're not gonna call 911, and you're still gonna have to be like, yo, you gotta call the station for that shit. It doesn't matter where you live. If I live in Providence and I work in Providence, and you call me off the clock, yo, you gotta call the station for that. So it's processes, right? Cops got to be okay with that because you shouldn't be getting. They won't get involved in that shit anyway. You know what I'm saying? They'll be like, "Go, bro, call the station." But we all know that cop who will fucking take away tickets for us and all that shit too. So it's like you got to make the decision to be good police, no matter if you're living in your town or not. But it's easier to be good police while you're on the clock. If you're,
I think the unfair thing against. You know what I think is really unfair against. I've been thinking about this a while too. I think it's unfair to ask police officers to do everything that society asks them to do.
Exactly.
This society doesn't guarantee jobs for people. If you watch you go around the world, you look at any country where there's not a lot of job opportunities for people. You have pockets of poverty and so forth, and naturally what comes out of it, small little petty crimes here and there. It's human behavior. People are looking for things. So instead of spending the money up front, we say, hey, Johnny, Joe, right? Police officers. We all know them. We all went. Who didn't go to school with someone who's now a cop?
True.
Right? They're working class people. How many rich kids you know? Right? They go like, oh yeah, my dad had money to pay for my school outright, and I didn't have to work for the first, 7-8 years of my adult life until I decided what I wanted to do. And in the end, I just thought being a beat cop would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's got benefits.
It's probably like 1%.
These people should be the police. The police should be. There's no reason they should not be our natural allies, our neighbors.
See, the thing is,
it's unfair of us as a society to ask them to do these other things because they're not signed up for it. I don't think asking them to show up on time for work is unfair. I don't think asking them to have 2 weeks only of vacation or to even be on call for super emergencies. I don't think that's unfair. What's unfair?
Well, see,
everything.
What's unfair is that both teachers and police officers are underpaid grossly. So it gives, especially in policing, it gives a lot of leeway for them to be like, you know what? I don't get paid for that shit.
Well, a lot of jobs are underpaid though. That are needed. A lot of needed jobs are underpaid. It's a job. We can't keep taking teachers in certain professions, teachers and cops. We hold them to the esteem of gods.
Yes.
We shouldn't. It's a job. It's a job that society needs. No more than the guy that picks up my fucking trash on Friday. I need him for society to be moving. So we need to stop putting these positions as if they're gods. They're not. They went to school or didn't. They decided they liked something and they went into that for money. It's for money. They're not volunteers. It's a job.
Well,
and that's where we get messed up.
It's a job, Adena, and it's a very specific job. The job of the police force is to violently enforce policies of the state.
Exactly.
Full stop. There's no other reason for someone. I can't go out with 8 of my buddies tonight, kick someone's door in, and shoot them in their bed and be like, well, I had a job to do.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you
pull someone over on the street and be like, hey man, what's in your trunk?
Well, you could
What's in
do
your
that.
pocket? Where you from? Where you going? What's your job?
Breonna Taylor.
I mean, you could do
for a very specific reason.
You could do that, but you probably get your ass beat doing it. But you could try it, right? Which brings me to my next point of the biggest thing to me that needs to happen for police reform to even begin is they need to take away implied immunity from these police officers.
Yes.
Because right now, for those who don't know that are watching, implied immunity just basically says that I'm a cop or a diplomatic official, which is where the law came from in the first place, that says that, I can do some shit and I'm going to be immune from it until they find out whether or not I did it illegally. So
Yeah.
I go out as a cop, I shoot somebody in the chest 3 times. I don't have to go right to jail as a police officer. As a regular citizen, I shoot somebody in the chest 3 times, I'm going to jail immediately. I don't get a chance to go see my family. I don't get a chance to get my story straight. I don't get a chance to fucking take a couple of naps and a last hot shower before I go to jail. I'm gonna get slammed on my motherfucking face and handcuffed and get put in a cell with Big Mook in them. But hopefully, you know, they're not feeling rapey for a couple of days while they figure out what the fuck is going on. And then maybe I'm innocent. Maybe my shooting was legit and maybe it wasn't. But if it's legit, I know I'm getting out after they figure it the fuck out. But I'm going to jail immediately.
Yeah.
If that doesn't start to happen with cops.
Missing,
You know what I mean?
important, anything could happen in those 3 days you're locked up. You can lose your job because of it, or to be found innocent. There's no recourse.
All to be found innocent, and that doesn't happen with police officers and diplomatic officials, but it needs to be taken away from police officers so that they can actually be policed when they do illegal shit.
I think the fact that those kind of rules exist, the implied immunity rule,
Let you know.
it lets you know exactly. It lets you know exactly what the purpose of the job is.
Yeah.
So on some level, not all of us obviously, but as a group and as a whole society, we've decided that if someone's hanging out on the corner, that's bad for whatever, business, property values, whatever the excuse is. And that annoyance is a justifiable reason to go violently handle someone's body.
Yep.
Put them in a car, in a box, in a cage.
Yeah.
When we stop using pretty words about it. Oh, I spent the weekend in jail. I don't say that my dog spent the weekend in jail if I put him in a kennel. Do I? I say he spent a weekend in a cage.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It is essentially violent to stop someone on the street and be like, "What are you doing?" In my world, in a world where there's no rules, right? That's an assault. It's an affront.
See,
in my way. You're blocking my path. Now you want to know what's in my pockets.
And
he said those are serious civil rights violations. If you just talking like straight up, just like constitutional violations.
Yeah.
And that's where stop and frisk was very, very, very dangerous when Trump was trying to put it onto the national stage, because stop and frisk was found to be unconstitutional because just stopping people, because based on the statistics, blacks and Latinos were stopped more than whites. And even with that, whites were let go on minor infractions. Blacks and Latinos were going to jail. They were getting put in a cage for those same minor infractions. So the thing is again, when police they have to also know where their bread is buttered, because black cops are put in a bad position because they are put in a position to earn a paycheck, and then they're trying to change the system from the inside out. But by doing that, people in the community are like, "Oh, this guy's a sellout. Look at this guy, the fucking guy." You know,
I don't know, man. I've seen
economically stable. You can't change a system that you're economically tied to unless the ultimate point is to make yourself out of a job. When I got into social services, I always said I work for shelters to eventually not being a job, because the end game is to have nobody homeless. Cops aren't getting into these jobs to end crime so if they're not with a job one day. It becomes a family legacy of generations. No one becomes a cop to eventually kill crime so that it's not needed. I've never heard anyone say, "Hey, I want to become a cop so one day we don't need cops." No one.
Yeah.
So you can't get into the structure to fix it when your idea was never to enter it with that attempt. It was always to become a part of it.
And to your point, they don't. They don't. I just moved up from down south. The city I lived in, population was roughly 60% black to 40% white, roughly. It's the South, so they don't have a lot of immigrants. It wasn't a very popular destination at one time. So,
nobody wanted to go to Club Mississippi, huh?
Right. No. Yeah. So we're, and this isn't deep South. This is Portsmouth, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Now, down there you had
Mason-Dixon line.
At the time I'm talking about, right? It's a metropolitan city, right? It's got or it's metropolitan area. So you got people from all over the country out there. You have at the time I'm talking about, we had a black mayor. We had a city council that was majority black representation. We had not the police chief, but the second, third, and fourth in command were people of color, one kind or another. And they had cops a couple of whom were recruited from up north. They're putting billboards up here because they were looking for new police officers. So I met at my house alarm went off one morning, and these guys show up to my door and knocked on the door. And so I go outside, I talk to them, and they both have accents. I'm like, where are you from? Oh, they're from Framingham. They were from up here. So that's what they had there. And at the same time, the people they were arresting and bothering on the street wasn't me.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't me. And so they were doing the same. It's the mission that's the problem. If your mission is to get in people's faces, go in that neighborhood, there's high crime in there. What's crime defined as maybe another conversation. But go in that neighborhood, there's high crime in there, and you go figure out what's going on and clean it up, you. And those guys take that thing, white or black, they got the badge, they walk in there, and those kids don't stand a chance. They're hanging out on the corner, turn out your pockets. They're hanging out at someone's house, who lives here, who doesn't? They're in your business. I can't imagine this. I don't. It goes without saying. I didn't have that kind of experience growing up. No one's hassling me, asking me what I'm doing in the parking lot, where I'm going, where I came from, where I live. I can't imagine living like that.
You know what, too?
The fact that it happens from police of all stripes lets me know it's a mission problem. It's a structural problem.
Exactly.
But you see, police are needed because, as you can see in my background, there's different of enforcements. Like there's Rorschach, who was uncompromising. There's John Shaft, who you can't really see, but it was his duty to please that girl's booty. And then they had a little Ant-Man over here. But see, the thing is that one thing that I started to hear a little bit more was how police are portrayed in the media. Because a lot of people don't really have interactions with police. But even when you watch a lot of these cop shows, look at how they operate. Right? They would get a suspect, and they would actually rough up the suspect. Yes. Right? They and get the information and beat it out of them.
That's what our generation saw. What kind of cop you think they are?
No, it's still on TV. Like all these cop shows are still promoting this kind of. So people that
the culture
but then anybody that wants to be like, oh, you can't do that. These are the bureaucrats. Oh, so now these are the people that are stopping the police from doing their job correctly, fighting the crime by beating it out of people. So now, mind you, when you now transpose this programming that people have that don't really interact with police, they're like, oh, you know what? The police needed to rough up Eric Gardner because he was doing something nefarious. Or what George Floyd was doing. They needed to rough him up. But when somebody's getting shot, it might be a bigger conspiracy behind it, so we got to bring him in. And we got to ask questions and see where it goes. It might go all the way to the top. This is what we've been programmed by watching all these cop shows on TV, that police should be able to beat a suspect to get justice, or quote unquote, get the truth. So now white people that don't, like yourself, James, that don't really have the interactions where the cops aren't roughing you up, but they're roughing me up. I'm like, yo, the fuck? Like, I'm not doing anything, guy. I'm just trying to walk to work. Like, oh, so what you doing in this neighborhood? My job is right there. Like, the fuck, guy.
Cops don't really do that. What I saw on TV growing up was that the cops only roughed up the bad guys, so you must be a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yep, so you must be a bad guy because they only rough up the bad people.
Yeah, they don't stop me because I'm doing everything right.
Nah, Mannix isn't roughing up no innocent people. Like, come on now. And it goes that far back. Hill Street Blues, all of those cop shows. But this is programming that people have. So they think that being a cop, yes, oh, you know what? I could rough up this guy.
Bad guy, exactly.
And I could rough up this bad guy. And you know what? If he's innocent, well, you know what? He's probably guilty of something. You know what?
Society's happy to do it. Every city in this country, since, all right, so we all grew up in like the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, apparently, like New York City was a shit skull.
Yeah. I know about New York. I'm from New York.
It was a really serious problem. So this older generation had this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Threw the kitchen sink at it right around the time when we were kids. You remember that time? I forget, it's like the 90s, but like there was this, I forget the name of it. It was like this whole genre of music that grew up talking about urban poverty and police brutality.
Is that hip hop?
So this thing's just been growing while we've been maturing. This thing's just been growing out of control. And we've all, to some extent, accepted it.
Yeah.
We've all said, wow, hey, this neighborhood looks a lot nicer.
Oh
Wow,
yeah,
is that a new house over there? You know what I mean? We can accept some of the things. And then we say, well, how'd you do that? Broken windows policy. Oh, well, it sounds really nice. Sounds really benign. It sounds benign when you get to move into the gentrified neighborhood.
Yep, for the cheap
Not when
rent.
you're the kid who's got a 3 strikes now on some bullshit, and you're rotting away in jail whilst your kids are getting raised by someone you don't know. This is not. We all have accepted this.
Times Square.
It's a societal thing. It needs to start with policy. And back to Portsmouth, Virginia, if I may, ladies and gentlemen. Portsmouth, Virginia had a killer cop on staff. The first one he killed was a Russian immigrant who was there to work for a season in the restaurant industry. And this kid was outside drunk one night, and he was throwing rocks at his girlfriend's window, something. I think he actually lived in the apartment building. He's outside an apartment building. Someone said, hey, someone's banging on the door. This guy was blackout drunk. This cop rolls up. There's some sort of altercation. No one knows what happened, except that the kid's dead. Some Russian teenager, they're 19, 20 years old, dead. They let him off the hook. Not a charge, not an investigation worth a damn. 2 years later, he's at the Walmart, maybe a mile away. He's got the same mission. No one ever said to him, hey, you can't go bother people when they're at their own apartment. Hey, you shouldn't react to drunk people who are having a mental health problem, whatever. Your job isn't to do that, asshole. Your job's to do this. No one ever told him no. They kept his mission the same. Police these neighborhoods. Clean up these streets. Go out there and find out what's going on. This time it was a teenager, a black kid, went to the Walmart. Someone in Walmart said, oh, I think he stole whatever. I don't know what the most expensive thing you can buy at Walmart or steal at Walmart is, but it wasn't that. He comes out of the parking lot, meets the same cop on an early Saturday morning or something. Remember it being early in the morning. Cop kills him, rolls him on the ground, and puts a gun to his back and shoots him on the ground. Same cop. They were not going to charge this goddamn cop again. Twice they were going to let him off. And the only thing that changed that mission for that police department, and to the extent it has been changed, the only thing that got this cop in front of a judge and a jury was the people in town said, we're going to get one of our local lawyers to run on a progressive platform for Commonwealth's attorney, which is what they call the district attorney down there. We got this lady in, Stephanie Morales. Is her name. You can find her. She's active nationally now. Stephanie Morales, a Commonwealth's attorney in Portsmouth, Virginia. She goes into office within a month. She had charges on this guy, and she put all the other cops on notice that is not the policy we're going to be enforcing in here. And from everything I hear, she's been doing a bang up job. Things have settled down. There haven't been any more incidences. That's the kind of change it doesn't take a big national change. It doesn't even really take, when you think about it, I mean, long term it will, like huge amounts of money. What it's going to take is the community being like, you're not going to shoot people and hassle people in our city. And if you do, then you're not going to have any backing from the next level up, which would be like the district.
Yeah, and part of that training that I was talking about earlier that I saw, I guess the guy wrote a book and it's called The Art of the Kill. But he was telling
the guy you're talking about. He's been,
and he was training them to shoot people dead square in their chest.
Yeah, center mass.
That center mass. Hit them dead square in their chest, end it. Like, because the thing too that I started to think about is like, how come police don't get trained to shoot people in the leg and disable them, or use their taser?
It's not always the safest thing.
It's not the way you do it.
It's not always, but see, then the thing too is like, now you got to go to court. Now you got a civil case. Now you have a defendant that can actually speak back, but they can't speak.
They probably did at one point.
They can't speak.
They probably did at one point, and then they started getting their ass beat from the fucking meth head that they shot in the leg, and then he still beat their ass. But but we gotta transition. I need just take 2 minutes, and we're gonna talk about this hot button topic right now about defunding the police. Just 2 minutes on how you feel, if there's an alternative, and then we'll move from there. But that's how I want to end today. I want to start with Adena. 2 minutes on defending the police. Or defunding, rather.
Well, the biggest thing people need to understand is that defunding literally means reallocation. It doesn't mean that we totally take away police, because at the end of the day, if someone's in my house with a gun to my head and I'm not loaded, I need someone to come in and handle that situation. And a social worker is not going to do that. Like, that's just the reality of it. Certain situations require a police presence, but that police presence needs to be trained, and it needs to be professional, it needs to be held to a standard. I think that the money definitely needs to be reallocated to social services. But what social services even looks like is a whole nother issue in the inner city. Because here, social services is just as bad as the police department. Having worked in it 13 years, it's just as white, it's just as oppressive, and it's just as racist. It's run just like a plantation, and people that work in it tend to call it that way. So until we start looking at all the structures that are going to be included in that reallocation, it's never going to work. So it needs to be more than just reallocation. It needs to be reallocation with community involvement and community say.
Nice.
Cool. James?
Yeah, so as far as defunding and reallocation, I think I agree 100% with Adena. Defunding is the natural consequence of reallocation. It will happen as you start setting your priorities to different priorities. If the priority is to have a healthy, wealthy, egalitarian society, then you will not be spending money on armed men in the street. That's it. You just won't do it. So I don't think it should be a scary word. I know it is to some people. It sounds weird, but I think that's just because the concept is weird. They have an image, as we discussed, of people, of what a police officer should do, and that is bust heads and so forth. And I don't look again. Once again, I don't think that this is a problem of individual police officers. This is a problem of the mission they're asked to do. They are asked to do violence for the state. They're violence workers, as opposed to social workers who are asked to help out with society. Their method is violence. The reason that someone's not going to get shot in the leg is because the mission, or when you use a weapon, the proper way to do it is to aim center mass. It's how you hit your target. It's all there is to it. You should never be drawing a gun on somebody that you're not ready to shoot. Those are simple things. That's another story. But but as far as defunding and reallocating, it is the same exact thing, and it needs to be done. There's in that reallocation, the police will have less money to spend. I imagine a world where there are less police officers, because it won't be as needed. That there will be other people doing other work that isn't their work. And I think, and I'm going to say this again, we can start with the highways. I would like to see speed trap cameras on any place where they're sitting there on the side of the road looking to pull people over. Police shouldn't be pulling anybody over for any reason. We have the technology. Put the cameras up there. We could stop how many interactions a year? Just by taking that one mission away. That's what they do in Germany. I never see the Polizei on the side of the road when I lived in Germany. Never saw them. But maybe I wasn't looking. Oh, I was looking.
Iron Monkey.
Yes, sir. All right. So defund the police. Number one, they have to change that slogan, because if you have to take 3 minutes to explain a simple concept of defunding the police, you already lost somebody, because the people that you're trying to appeal to are the same people that only respond to simple things like lock her up. Like that's very simple and to the point. Lock her up. Defund the police. Now you have to explain to them. Understand, they don't even want to hear anything you have to say in the first place. So now when you try to explain to them what defund the police actually means, you lost them. And they're always just going to hunker back further into their comfort zone. So that being said, all of this defund the police, they just have to change the slogan, reallocate funds. Keep it simple. You know, something. I don't know who works in the jingle industry other than Jamie Foxx back in the day, but somebody needs to work on something. But really and truly, there's no need for them to have tanks. There's no need for them to have military grade material, because if the situation is sticky that much, bring in the National Guard.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. Like, keep police doing simple things like showing up. Like getting a cat out of the tree, that's a social worker. Like, you know, certain things like certain things cops should do, and only them, right? But really and truly, having weapons at the ready for argument is not really settling the argument. It's not. you're now introducing a weapon. So if you introduce a weapon, motherfucker, I'm gonna get a weapon too.
How about
Like,
disarm the police?
like how disarm the police is a better one, because even in England, even though there's totally different things, they have bobbies with the nightsticks. Like, I don't know if that's changed. I'm
Hey,
probably
that
still
just
stuck in
means
the Sherlock Holmes times,
that,
but
that
still.
that just means the level of violence will change from people getting shot to people getting clubbed to death.
Stabbed, yeah. Take it
you
back to the
know,
old school. Get
take
stabbed.
it back to the
It's
old
more
school.
personal. It's more
But
personal getting stabbed. You got to be in my face.
all right,
Like,
we're up against it, man. You guys,
Yeah.
Dawood, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. And when it comes to defunding the police, it's really a reallocation, and I think they should call it that. But
Yeah.
the media spin needs something for the public to be enraged about. Is what I feel is why they keep saying defund the police when it's really just a reallocation, which to James's point is a natural defunding of the police. When you take a money and you move it, just like they took money from educational music departments and moved it to fixing the roads or wherever they fucking put the money. That's less
the
money.
general fund, yeah.
Yeah, there's less money in the school department. Just like the 911 got all that money and they sent it to the pension fund. That's why our 911 is trash. So, it's the natural progression of what happens. I want to take an opportunity to thank you guys for coming on and chopping it up with DJ Iron Monkey and ourselves. Like I said, we're going to do these on a regular basis, so you're more than welcome. We would love to have you guys come back on when we talk about our next topic. Take 10 seconds and plug whatever you need to plug. Adena, anything you want to shamelessly self-promote right now?
Oh, well, if you guys want to follow me, my food business is called Black Beans PVD. You can find me on Instagram at Baked Beans PVD. Soul food and all other kind of foods that's specific to West End of Providence. So.
Nice.
James?
Yeah. So social animal dog training. You can find me at same thing, Instagram, Facebook, social animal dog training. Also, I'm a real estate agent by trade, Client Focus RE. That's on your socials as well, or you can just hashtag your dog's favorite agent. That's clever. One more thing, I think maybe a good slogan we could call it, like, we could say repurpose the police. I think it'll work good with like yuppies and hipsters. So repurpose police officer.
Reuse, recycle.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's very environmentally conscious.
Get Sting involved too.
Iron Monkey, anything you wanna promote, DJ Iron Monkey?
I just finished my Vanilla Sky Drive podcast, consisting of Blue Eyed Soul music. Has some freestyle. More than I actually set out to put, but actually working on volume 2. But then I'm actually excited about this new volume that I'm actually gonna do. I'm actually gonna do old school hip hop. I've never done one, and it's gonna be like the era of for the Jeeps, the Audis, the boom boxes. It's gonna be that era type hip hop. So so people can bust out the WAP, do the Roger Rabbit, the Running Man. The Reebok, any of them old school dances. So I'm trying to do that before the end of the summer. So look out for that one. Has no name, but Vanilla Sky Drive is available. Deezer, where the fuck I have my shit? Podomatic, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And Daddy Derek's collection's coming for the fall time because people don't really take baths in the summer.
People don't take baths anyway. That bath life is for the birds.
Nah, that bath life. Yo, I'm always rocking that bath life, B.
Hashtag bath life. Yo, DJ Caveman always on the socials, man. Hit me up for your next party as we start to slowly come out of this this double Dutch we doing. We're confined, we're not confined. We're confined, we're not confined. So we'll see what happens with that as a DJ. But IQ Home Improvement is the new venture. If you need some shit fixed in your house, you need a deck, you need a porch, you need a bathroom, you need any of that home improvement stuff, holla at your boy. We got that work for y'all. Also, make sure you're checking us all out on the social medias, man. Hit that like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the conversation. Ask us any questions you want to ask us. We'll definitely put you out on the air. Shout out to everybody who continues to watch and all of our new fans as well. Thank you guys for coming on. And we'll check y'all next time on the Saturday Conversation. This is episode 85. We got to figure out who we're going to name episode 85 after. But
I'm still on that campaign. Bring Melo back to the Knicks.
Bring Mello back to the Knicks. Hey, we out, guys. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate y'all, and we out.
Peace.